The call came just after sunset, when the light turns that pale gold before dying. "Mr. Messi," the voice said, slow and careful. "This is Detective Rowan. We need you to come down to the station. We found something about the robbery case." For a second I thought he'd said the wrong name. That case was buried, like the bullet that still sleeps under my ribs. I was sitting in my car outside the rehab center. Same place. I've spent the last 11 months learning how to stand again without shaking. My reflection in the windshield looked like a stranger. Thinner, colder, eyes too still. The word robbery cracked through my head like ice. That night hadn't left me, not the mask, not the gun, not the sound of glass breaking before the flash. I'd taken that bullet protecting her. My wife, Liana. She cried at the hospital, held my hand like she meant it. Until one night, half awake, I heard her whisper to the nurse, "If he didn't make it, the insurance clears $3 million. It would have been easier." Those words didn't sound like her voice. They sounded like the truth wearing her skin. I never told anyone, just signed the divorce papers when they came a week later. No explanation, no visit, just a clean signature like I'd already been erased. Now the detective's tone, soft, reluctant, told me this wasn't about closure. It was about her. When I walked into the precinct, it smelled the same. Burnt coffee, old paper, tired lies. Detective Rowan looked older, heavier. He didn't meet my eyes. "Messi," he said, pushing a small envelope across the desk. "This came up when we finalized your case. Thought you should see it." Inside were crime scene photos, statements, a report I'd never read. One detail stopped me cold. Liana's phone pinged near the store the night of the robbery. But she told the police she was home. I read the timestamp again. "Be safe, baby. Come home soon." Text was sent from a tower 2 blocks away from where I was shot. I looked up. "You're saying she was there?" Rowan's jaw tightened. "We're saying she might have known one of the suspects. A man named Carter." The name hit something deep. She'd mentioned him once. A co-worker. "Don't worry," she'd said, then smiling. "He's harmless." Now his name sat in an evidence file next to the night my life ended. I felt the old ache under my ribs start to pulse again, steady and alive. I closed the file, stood, and said only 2 words. "Find him!" Rowan frowned. "Messi, why?" But I was already walking out, the cold air burning my lungs. Because deep down I already knew the truth. This wasn't just a robbery. It was a setup. I didn't go home that night. Home didn't feel like a place anymore. It felt like a memory that forgot my name. Instead, I drove without a map, through the city lights, down the same streets where everything began to fall apart. The more I tried to forget, the more the details came back. The black SUV parked outside the store that night. The way the gunman moved, too fast, too sure, like someone had told them exactly where I'd be. And now Liana's phone at the scene, 2 blocks away. It wasn't coincidence. It was choreography. I parked near the riverfront, the place where I used to take her after long shifts. We'd sit in silence, sharing fries, pretending we were happy. Now that same silence felt heavier, like it was watching me. I opened my laptop, logged into an old cloud account she didn't know I still had access to. Years of photos, receipts, old text backups. Nothing obvious, nothing criminal. Just enough normality to feel wrong. But patterns hide in plain sight. She'd always been good at deleting messages, but she forgot about her email autosync. One name appeared again and again in small transfers labeled consulting. Carter V., the coworker, the man from the file. Consulting, right? The payments began 2 months before the robbery and stopped exactly a week after. I stared at the dates. Every payment aligned with her late-night excuses, the ones I used to believe. Working late again, babe. Now they sounded like rehearsals. I printed the records, drove to an old contact, an IT guy who used to handle cyber forensics for private insurance. He owed me a favor. By morning, he handed me an encrypted backup from her old phone. "Be careful," he said, sliding it over. Whoever she's tied to, they cleaned up too neatly. Almost professional. Professional. The word didn't fit her. She was clever, not cautious. That meant someone else had helped. I spent the next few nights digging through timestamps, photos, traffic cameras. Sleep came in fragments, same as the memories. But somewhere between exhaustion and obsession, the puzzle started to take shape. A week before the robbery, her car parked outside a storage unit registered under a false name. Same location, a black SUV was later found on traffic cam footage. Minutes before I was shot, I drove there myself. The unit was empty now, swept clean. But the dust told stories. tire marks, footprints, and a faint perfume I hadn't smelled since the hospital. She'd been here, and not long ago. As I stood there in the half-dark, I noticed something half buried under the metal shelf, a burnt photo corner. Edge melted, the rest gone, but the faint curve of a smile remained, hers, and beside it, a shadow, a man's hand resting on her shoulder. I pocketed the fragment, locked the door, and walked out into the night. The world felt smaller now, tightening around the truth. Each step brought me closer to something I didn't want but couldn't stop. And as I reached my car, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. I answered. Silence at first, then a voice I hadn't heard in a year. Soft, familiar, cold. You shouldn't be looking for things that aren't yours, Messy. The line went dead. My pulse didn't race. It slowed, because only one person ever said my name like that. Liana knew. And she wasn't hiding anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker through the fog like slow dying stars. Her voice replayed in my head, sharp, calm, deliberate. You shouldn't be looking for things that aren't yours. It wasn't a warning. It was ownership. She still thought she owned my silence. By morning, I'd decided something. If she wanted me to stop looking, I'd let her think I did. Because people who think they've won always leave the biggest traces behind. I called Detective Rowan, told him I needed the case file again, pretending I wanted closure, pretending I wanted to let go. He hesitated, then agreed to meet. When I got there, he slid the file across his desk, his eyes searching mine. Messy, he said, you're not the first man to lose everything. But don't lose yourself chasing her ghost. I smiled. Who said she's a ghost? The folder felt heavier this time. Not because of paper, but because I finally knew what to look for. That evening, I texted her. Liana, can we meet? Just to talk. I half expected no reply. But within a minute. Tomorrow. Same cafe we used to go to. Fast. Too fast. She wanted control again. I spent the night setting things up. The tiny recorder in my jacket. The backup mic hidden in my watch band. The PI I'd hired under another name was parked a block from the cafe. Wired and ready. It wasn't revenge I was after anymore. It was evidence. Truth, clean, documented. When she walked in the next day, she looked different. Same perfume, same confident walk, but something was off. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You look better than I expected, she said, sliding into the booth. Guess rehab worked. I laughed softly. Guess so. She stirred her coffee like it mattered, like she wasn't sitting across from the man she'd almost buried. Why'd you want to meet, Messy? She asked finally. To end it properly, I said. She tilted her head, studying me, like a snake measuring distance. And what? We're already done. Not yet, I said. Her expression froze just for a second, then softened again. You always did like your drama. I leaned back. You always did like your lies. The words slipped out quieter than I meant. And for a heartbeat, something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt, not fear, just calculation. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly, screen hidden from view. I caught a reflection in the glass of the cafe window, one word on her screen. Carter. Alive. Still out there, and still with her. I kept my face still, heartbeat steady. She didn't notice. Instead, she smiled again. Goodbye, Messy. She stood to leave, and for a second I thought it was over. But then her phone slipped slightly from her hand, and when she bent to pick it up, a small envelope fell from her bag, plain white, no label. She didn't notice as it slid under my seat. When she walked out, I waited a long minute, then reached down and picked it up. Inside were flight tickets, 2 seats to Miami. Departure tomorrow. Passenger names Liana Vale and Carter Vale. My fingers tightened around the paper until it wrinkled. She'd already married him. Changed her name. Planned her escape. I looked toward the cafe door. Through the window. I saw her getting into a black SUV, the same model from that night. And in that moment, everything connected. This wasn't over. She's leaving with the man who might have staged the first robbery. Messy realizes the trap isn't finished. It's just moved. I followed them without headlights. The city was half asleep, the streets wet with leftover rain, reflecting red and white like veins under glass. Her black SUV stayed 3 cars ahead, easy enough to track. Just hard enough to feel deliberate, like she wanted to be followed. They headed south, toward the edge of the city, where warehouses traded light for shadows. The same area where the first robbery had happened. It wasn't random. It never had been. I parked a block away, cut the engine, and watched. The SUV pulled into a fenced lot behind an old logistics building. She got out first, hood up, scanning the street. Then he followed. Carter. I recognized him instantly. Same frame from the blurred photo the PI had shown me weeks ago. Broad shoulders, shaved head. The kind of walk that came from never expecting to be caught. They disappeared inside. I waited 5 minutes, then slipped through the side alley, climbing over the half-rusted gate. Inside, the building smelled of oil and dust. I moved slow, steady, footsteps measured. Their voices carried faintly through the hollow hall. "It's still risky," Carter said. "He's been asking questions." "He won't do anything," she replied, tone sharp, confident. "He doesn't have the proof." "You're sure he bought it?" "He came to me, didn't he?" I froze behind a stack of pallets, listening. Her voice hadn't changed. Same confidence, same poison wrapped in silk. "Tomorrow we fly out. Once the new transfer clears, we're done." "And if he talks?" Carter asked. "Then it'll look like self-defense, again." I didn't need to hear more. Every word confirmed what I already knew. The robbery was never about money. It was a test, a way to see if she could kill me and walk away clean. Now she was trying again, this time to erase the loose ends before running. I slipped back out before they noticed. Outside, the night air hit cold against my face, but my pulse stayed calm. I wasn't scared anymore, just focused. Because now it wasn't just suspicion, it was strategy. I went straight to Rowan's house, not his office. He answered the door in a t-shirt, half asleep. "Messy, what the hell?" "She's still with him," I said. "They're leaving tomorrow, Miami, 6 a.m. He rubbed his eyes. "You have proof?" "Not yet, but I will." He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. "Messy, don't do something you can't undo." I smiled. "That's the thing, detective." I already did. I left before he could answer. That night I called my PI. "Toby," I said, "I need you to be at Eastfield Airport. Gate B23 before sunrise. Don't let them board." He hesitated. "What am I supposed to do if they do?" "Just record everything," I said. "The truth has a way of showing itself when people think they're free." I barely slept. The city outside my window looked different somehow, quieter, as if it was waiting too. By dawn, I was already at the airport, parked where I could see everything. 6 a.m. sharp, their SUV rolled into the terminal lot. They walked together, laughing, holding hands like the world didn't have graves behind them. I watched them hand their tickets to the agent. Then, out of nowhere, 2 uniformed officers approached. Rowan was with them. He must have moved faster than I expected. They spoke to Liana first. Her face changed slowly. Confusion, then panic, then something colder. Understanding. Carter tried to run. Didn't make it 3 steps. The officers dragged them both out of the line, cameras flashing, voices rising. I stayed in the car. Didn't need to see her look for me. Didn't need to hear her excuses. But then, as they were being let out, she turned her head, like she knew where I was. Her eyes found mine across the lot, glass between us, distance heavy as years. And she smiled. Not fear, not regret, just a calm, knowing smile. Then she mouthed 2 words. Too late. A few seconds later, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. 1 photo. Carter's storage unit. My name painted across the wall in red spray. And below it, something darker, wetter, fresh. Someone else had been there. Someone who wasn't supposed to know. The trap wasn't for them. It was for Messy. The photo sat on my screen like a wound that wouldn't close. My name, painted in red. The edges still dripping like whoever did it wanted me to see it fresh. I zoomed in. Behind the letters, bare footprints on the concrete floor. No police tape, no signs of arrest. That meant one thing. This photo wasn't from Rowan's team. Someone else had gone there after me. I drove. Didn't tell Rowan. Didn't call Toby. If this was meant for me, I needed to face it myself. The city was still waking up when I reached the outskirts. The storage lot was empty except for 1 truck idling by the gate. No license plate, no driver. Just the sound of the engine humming slow, patient. I parked far, approached on foot. The air smelled like metal and rain. When I pushed open the storage door, the light flickered weakly, casting long shadows that looked like movement. And then I saw it. The red letters were real, messy, painted across the concrete, still glistening wet. But it wasn't paint. It was blood. A body lay just out of frame, face down, wrist bound. Male, broad shoulders, shaved head. Carter. I froze. The bullet wound in the back of his skull told the story, execution style. Same as before. The air thickened, like the world stopped breathing. I stepped closer, careful not to leave prints. A phone buzzed on the floor beside him, screen cracked, half lit. I picked it up. One text unread. From Liana. It's done. Make sure he sees it. For a moment, everything went silent. Then I heard tires outside. Slow, deliberate. I killed the light and crouched low. The truck engine cut off. A door opened, then footsteps. Heels this time. She was here. Liana stepped into the doorway, backlit by the faint dawn behind her. She didn't look shocked to see the body. She looked at peace. You came, she said quietly, her voice echoing in the metal room. I had to, I said. She smiled faintly. Good, makes this easier. I straightened slowly, keeping distance. You killed him. She tilted her head. You say that like you didn't want it done. Her calmness twisted something inside me. I wanted to shout, to ask why, to tear through the lies, but she didn't deserve words anymore. She kept talking. He got greedy. Started talking about cutting me out. Said you were getting too close, so I handled it, just like before. Just like before, I repeated. She smiled wider. You never understood. You were supposed to die clean, Messy. The insurance, the sympathy, the freedom. She took a step closer. But fate's funny, isn't it? You survived, and now? Well, maybe this time I'll finish what I started. Her hand slid into her coat pocket. Metal glinted. A gun. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Because somewhere behind her calm eyes I saw something else, a flicker of fear. And before I could speak, a voice called out from behind her. Drop it, Liana. Detective Rowan. She froze. He stepped in slow, gun drawn, his face pale in the half-light. Don't, he warned. Not again. Her jaw tightened. Then, without a word, she turned the gun toward me. I heard the shot, but not from her. Rowan fired first. Her body dropped hard, eyes still open, shock frozen on her face. For a long time, nobody spoke. The only sound was the hum of that still-running truck outside. Rowan finally lowered his gun, exhaled shakily. She set you up, he said, his voice rough. She called in an anonymous tip before I got your message. Claimed you were planning to kill them both. We almost believed her. I looked down at her, then at the name on the wall. Blood had started to dry, the color darkening. She'd tried to mark me guilty before dying herself. I wanted to feel relief or closure, but there was nothing left. Just silence. Rowan put a hand on my shoulder. You're clear, Messy. It's over. I looked at him. No, I said quietly. It's never over with people like her. He frowned. What do you mean? But before I could answer, the phone in my pocket buzzed again. Unknown number. A single message. Nice work. Payment confirmed. And the sender's name. Liana. Someone else is using her name. She may not have been working alone, or she may not be dead. The message on my phone glowed in the dark. Nice work. Payment confirmed. Liana. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. She was gone. I'd seen her body taken away. So how could she text me? Rowan was still talking, his voice a low murmur in the background. Words about reports and statements. But all I heard was the soft buzz of that message echoing inside my head, like a wrong note that won't stop ringing. Later, at the precinct, the evidence room smelled of dust and paper. Rowan dropped the phone bag on the table. Her number's still active, he said. But we traced the UA signal. It bounced through 3 VPNs. Whoever's using it knows what they're doing. Then it wasn't her, I said. He nodded slowly. Maybe not, but whoever it is wants you to think she's still alive. I left the station with more questions than answers. At home, I pulled out my old laptop, the one she never knew the password to. There were dozens of old emails from fake domains, messages that once looked like spam. Now they looked different, structured, timed, each one sent days before a major event in my life. The robbery, the divorce, even the anonymous insurance claim. Someone had been orchestrating this from behind a screen long before any bullet or betrayal. I ran the headers through a trace tool. Every path led back to the same IP block. A law firm server in Miami, the same city she and Carter were planning to flee to. The pieces clicked. The life insurance policy, the staged robbery, the transfer records. It wasn't her plan. She was part of someone else's. Someone who used her greed as a lever. Next morning, I took everything to Rowan. He studied the printouts for a long time, eyes narrowing. Messy, These messages aren't just from a random hacker. They're tied to an insurance investigator named Collins. He handled your payout claim, the one that got frozen after the shooting. So he's behind it? I asked. Looks that way, Rowan said. He's been laundering claims under dead clients' names. Liana and Carter were supposed to be the clean exit, but when you survived, it broke his pattern. We drove to the corporate building where Collins worked. When he saw us walk in, his confident smile cracked like thin glass. Rowan handled the rest. Quiet questions, quiet answers. By afternoon, Collins was in custody. Fraud, data tampering, digital impersonation, the works. He'd been sending the messages from a cloned phone, pretending to be Liana, feeding me just enough truth to push me toward the edge. That night, Rowan called again. It's over, he said. Collins confessed. The case is closed. I thanked him, but I didn't feel relief. Because closure doesn't always feel like peace. Sometimes it just feels empty. At home, I sat by the window, watching the city breathe under the rain. The scar beneath my ribs ached faintly, the same rhythm it always had. Maybe it was a reminder that some wounds don't fade, they just change language. On my desk lay the last piece of evidence, a printed email. No address, no signature, just one line written weeks ago, time-stamped before everything ended. Silence isn't the end. Messy, it's the truth finally catching its breath. I didn't know if it was from her or him or the universe itself. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't need to find out. I closed the laptop, turned off the light, and let the night settle. Outside, the sirens were distant. The world for once felt still. And in that stillness, I realized something simple. She never won. Neither did I. Only the truth did. The days after the confession passed like pages of a book I wasn't reading. Headlines spun around the case. Insurance fraud uncovered. Officer cleared in shooting. Systemic corruption exposed. To everyone else, it was over. To me, it was only beginning to make sense. I spent the mornings walking along the same river. I used to drive past every day before the robbery. The world moved slower now, deliberate, almost cautious. People smiled again. But I'd forgotten how to return one. One afternoon, Detective Rowan called. He said, "Messy, I thought you'd want to know. Collins took a plea deal. He's giving up everything. Names, documents, offshore records. Turns out your wife wasn't his only case. She was one of 12. I didn't answer for a while. Then softly I asked, "And her part?" "She was manipulated," he said. "But she knew enough to stop." She didn't. There it was, the truth clean and merciless. Not evil, not innocent, just human. That night I went through her old things for the first time. A box of receipts, a few letters, perfume bottles still holding her scent. At the bottom, a sealed envelope addressed to me, my name written in her careful hand. Inside one line, I wanted freedom more than love. I just didn't know they'd cost the same. I sat there for hours, not angry, not sad, just still. Sometimes the truth doesn't shatter you. It dissolves you slowly, until all that's left is acceptance. Weeks later, Rowan stopped by my place. He looked tired but lighter. "You ever think about going back?" he asked. "To work?" He nodded. I smiled faintly. "No, I think the world has enough detectives. What it needs now is witnesses." He didn't ask what I meant. He didn't have to, because witnessing isn't just about seeing crime or pain. It's about understanding what survival really costs. As he left, the sun dipped behind the buildings, and for the first time, the light didn't feel harsh. It felt earned. I packed up the last folder, labeled case, closed, and placed it on the shelf. Right beside it, a fresh notebook waited, empty, patient. Maybe one day I'd write it all down, not as revenge, not as proof, but as a story about how silence can be louder than any gunshot, how betrayal can end without blood, and how truth, when it finally arrives, doesn't demand applause, only peace. The clock ticked. The night settled. And somewhere beyond the city's hum, I finally heard it, that quiet thing I'd been chasing all along. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Subscribe now to Cheating Stories Insight World, where every lie leaves a mark, and every truth finds its way home.